Good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you about one of my longest, most fond book. Um, it's the Histories by Herodotus. He is one of two major um, historical writers in ancient Greece.
Cool.
It's him and Thucydides, I think, or Thucydides. I think it's Thucydides. Anyway, and Herodotus. Um, and one thing to start off, I love early writing in any genre form. So like real early novels, or this is like a historical book, because now everyone knows we'll just talk about a novel. Everyone knows what a novel is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be about 200 pages. It can be longer. It's going to have chapters. You can have different perspectives. You can have characters. There's going to be some kind of plot. We all know those things. But if you think about before there was a novel, you just had to figure out what you were going to do. There weren't any rules to break. So the early novels are like wildly experimental and original. They do all sorts of strange things that you wouldn't necessarily think of as a novel.
And is this a novel?
This is a history book.
Okay.
But it's the same idea. So this would never be written today, or kind of any other time other than like ancient Greece, the way it is. He has no problem mixing in legends and mythology and second-hand or third-hand stories. He'll tell anecdotes about it's a train here. Have like strange like anecdotes about people, and it's at a time where like he wasn't necessarily sitting down to write a history book. He was like, well, like we're living in an important time, and I want to try to record everything that I can. And he went all through Greece and Persia, talking to people. I read in the introduction, depending on how well he was received into the town that he was going to, determined how he wrote about them.
That makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Like a historian shouldn't do that.
Right.
Like the Athenians, like welcomed him with open arms, and he's like, these Athenians are great, And then like other places, like they like weren't as nice to him. He's like, well, these people are real jerks.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the story that he's telling is, it's ancient Greece. There are all of these like nation states, these different regions. They're constantly quarreling and battling, and then all the while, there's a larger war happening with Persia coming in. They're fighting back and forth. But most of the interesting things are going to be about the characters that he's talking about, like in these areas. One of the things that I think is like really fascinating to me is that this is pre-Christian.
Oh, cool.
Pre anything. They have multiple gods that they talk about, and more importantly, their sense of morality is just different than what it is today. Like there's a totally different standards of what's a good person or what's a bad person. Today it's like ingrained, like especially if you're going to speak abstractly, like you should be forgiving, be modest, stuff like that.
Right.
Well, anyway, the great people in here are unforgiving, ruthless.
Yeah, they had angry gods.
They had angry, and they had more than that, because like that's still kind of like the Old Testament as far as like a wrathful God. It was different. They had an envious God.
Oh, sure.
The gods were envious of man's prosperity.
Totally.
And they're battling, essentially like with nature, to win? Like, can they command the world that they live in? Nature's or the gods are always fighting back with them. Like King Cyrus is on this. He has like a whole army, and they're off somewhere, and one of his horses drowns in a river.
Oh.
Well, he gets mad at the river, and he goes like, "I am going to take my revenge on this river." Yeah.
How does he do that?
He drained it. He put in 8,000 extra like outlets. He had the whole army digging out all the way down until no horse can drown in this river. And he took a summer off. They're on their way to battle, and a horse drowns. And he goes, "Stop. We're going to start digging these things for a year." And then after the river's like drained, he goes, "All right, guys, we still have to go to that battle." And then they like keep marching on. That's like one of the stories in here. It's like fantastic.
Yeah.
That
would never happen today. I mean, would be a madman. Like,
you'd be a madman.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a story of like a commanding person, like that is like a legend, like a mythical person that you would tell people about. Go like, yeah, he didn't let the river win.
So, did the author just go and as he traveled came across these different people to write about these different stories? Is that how the book is?
Most of what he's writing about is already in the past.
Oh, okay.
So what he's doing is going around and having people tell them like their stories, like what's like the folklore here. As far as like his present day, it's mostly him witnessing like architecture or monuments, things like that, that he actually sees. But everything in the book has already happened.
Okay.
And it's sort of like the way we would go like, oh, you know, my grandfather did something or other. You just have to take someone's word for it.
That makes it particularly funny to consider when he met people he didn't like, he would portray their own history through his lens.
And really, like, the only thing that it can be compared to, I think, other than the other Greek historian, like, it has a lot of similarities to the Old Testament as far as, like, its vastness. It's so wide-ranging. He talks about, like, architecture, how people build buildings and bridges, and how like the merchants work, how does money exchange, clothing, how different areas pray, and do they have sacrifices and things like that. One of the differences is most of the cultures are all pretty much embraced. So, you know, they'll write it and go, yeah, you know, these people over here, like, they have their gods, or this is their name for their gods, and we have these names for our gods. All of, like, when they're all, like, in battle, and, like, a town gets taken over, like, there's definitely, like, raping and pillaging and plundering. But a lot of the time, they found it easier to just let everyone keep their beliefs.
Yeah.
Go like, you're gonna pay us. If we go to war, you're coming. Other than that, like, go sacrifice your goat.
Yep.
And that's fine. Opposed to, like, you know, in the Old Testament, it's really like people that are doing things different is bad.
Right.
You know, that's not like the Sodomites probably didn't think they were doing anything that bad.
Right.
Like, we're just sodomizing.
Yeah.
And, like, as far as it goes, like, I prefer this to the Old Testament.
Cool.
I think it's for like my sensibilities, I get more out of it, and it's like just as wide ranging. And it's interesting to see, like, the Old Testament was hugely influential, ingrained into our society, and this is a relic. This is gone.
Yeah.
So it's really seeing a world of people that acted and believed in a totally different way than we see today. And I think it's important to read things like that. The last thing I'll say is, like, there are some things that you catch on right away with. So, like, there's a region called Crete,
Yeah.
and the people that live in Crete are Cretans,
Yeah.
and that's where we have, if you call someone Cretan, it comes from that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, they were, like, always kind of looked down upon, so they were Cretans.
They mustn't have been very nice to him when he visited.
No, they weren't. Sparta, obviously, like you say, like, you know, someone has a very Spartan lifestyle.
Yeah.
Lesbians.
Oh, right.
There's an island called Lesbos,
Right.
and everyone on the island is a lesbian. But, like, you see these
That's
things
nice.
and realizing, like, there are some things that are still in our vernacular.
Right.
And they're coming from real places. Like, you know, now we can look at it and it's kind of like an interesting factoid, but it'd be the same as going, like, not like a dirty Mexican.
Yeah.
Because it's like a region, and you're using, like, a whole society to be like a characteristic of how someone behaves.
Right. It's like a different world, different time.
Totally different world.
Yeah.
I love it. It's kind of a book that you could, like, read once a week. Like, open it up and read a couple passages. Highly readable, extremely readable. I think it's more readable than the Old Testament. There's lists. It's just easier to read. I guess I'll kind of wrap up there. Do you have anything?
No, that sounds interesting.
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting book. Herodotus. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them. And thank you for watching.